Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome and thank all of you for dialing in today for our webinar dedicated to the JRC Makers in Residence program that was launched by the European Commission Joint Research Center Makerspace. Today, the webinar is dedicated to present you the 5 makers who have participated to the program, and in particular to show you their prototypes. So my name is Valentina Imparato, and it's my great pleasure today to guide you as a moderator throughout this event. But thankfully, I'm not alone today. There is my colleague Mateusz helping me from the backstage. Thank you, Mateusz. So my greetings are coming from physically from ISPRA, but I would like to hear from the audience. Where are the people connecting from? So I'm really curious to know where you are connecting from. So let's do a little Slido poll. Maybe Mateusz can help me showing in the chat the link. Yes, thank you very much. So you can use the code. You can click the link that is here in the chat to access Slido, and reply from where are you connecting from, typing just the city and in brackets if you want your country. And meanwhile you are answering the poll, I would like to highlight the fact that this year the JRC Makers in Residence program has been run virtually because of COVID, of course, but the makers have established their own collaboration and worked with local spaces in their own countries and in the city in which they live. So I'm very curious to see how spread in EU is the interest for their presentation today and how further this collaboration went. So I'm really curious to see the results. Maybe Mateusz, you want to show the results? Okay. This is like this is a map. Can we see the results maybe? Okay, many from France I've seen. Mm-hmm. I saw yeah, here. From my office in ISPRA, and many from France, but some also from Poland. Yeah, very nice. And of course from Italy. Yeah, thanks, Mateusz. So it's nice to see these different locations and maybe not so many different climates in this room, in this webinar. So here outside is very sunny, so I'm sending sun for the one who doesn't have at the moment. So thanks for replying. And there is one person in the chat attending from the UK. Okay, welcome to everyone. So a little just housekeeping before we get started. As you have maybe noticed, I'm already recording the webinar. So if you're missing anything, don't worry. The record will be accessible from the EU Science Hub webpage. And as a little agenda points, I will make a little bit a very brief introduction, and then I will pass the floor to the makers. You can expect the makers to have the floor for about 15 minutes, and then we will run Q&A sessions at the end of the 5 presentation as a block. Then lastly, we will have time for final reflection and closing remarks. all your comments and questions to the makers are very, very welcome. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them using the Q&A box that you find in the bottom of your screen and the bottom of your control panel in Zoom, and preceded by the name of the maker. So I will know to who to address the question at the end. And I will bring the questions up during the Q&A sessions. You can also, as a spectator, you can also upvote the questions that are already there. They're already made by others. I would like also to encourage all the makers to have a look at the chat box, so in the Q&A box, and maybe check if there are questions that you can already answer in writing or start answering them in writing. But then we will have them during the Q&A sessions. But let's begin. I'm sure most of you know what a makerspace is, like a grassroots place for civic engagement and community initiatives, where there comes community initiatives. So I go directly to ours. So the JRC Makerspace is unique for its kind because it was launched by an European institution, but belongs to the wide networks of more than 800 makerspaces across the EU. Our makerspace is an open and collaborative space, fully equipped with digital fabrication tools and much more, and is designed to host people. And those can be makers, citizens, and scientists with who we collaborate, and host various type of activities and events. Is designed to promote active participation, co-creation, and scientific research. And it represents basically our stage to experiment with citizen engagement, with a strong focus on hands-on and material deliberation approach. Basically, it's our place to critically think while we are thinking with the topic. It's also represent now the physical hub for the community of practice of citizen engagement and deliberative democracy. This year, the JRC Makerspace launched the program that you are attending the webinar of, so the JRC Makers in Residence program, that is an immersive program that aims to offering space to EU makers to further their practice and develop unique, inspired, and innovative prototypes, tackling topics that are of open concerns and where often creativity and multidisciplinarity approach is key to ginger up fresh thinkings and new perspectives. This year, the focus of the program has been on two subjects. So the youth, alive through a pandemic, was one of the theme, and the pollinators decline, what can make a difference. So today, once again, I'm delighted to present the 5 makers who have undertaken this journey within the program and discovered their final prototypes. So that being said, without further ado, who are those makers? Who are the makers of the first edition of the program? Let's have a quick round of table and get to know them. I will start by presenting myself just a little bit again, and then I will give the floor to one maker next to me, then we'll pass the floor again to another, and so on and so forth until the floor comes back to me. Is that okay? Great. So again, my name is Valentina, and I'm one of the managers of the JRC Makerspace, which is located in Ispra. And I support the activities with experimentation and implementation of citizen engagement activities. And I will pass the floor that is next to me is Dalia. Dalia, who are you and what defines you as a maker? And what is your favorite tool maybe?
Hi, my name is Dalia. I'm from Slovakia, but I studied and I currently live in south of France. I work as a freelancer with a focus on architecture and digital fabrication. What drew me to this? Well, I grew up in a hacker culture, and through my architecture studies, I have developed a particular interest in DIY and maker movements, and the notion that everyone is capable of creation when given the tools and the knowledge. So in my work, I try to explore the role of an architect and a designer in an era that some people might call the new industrial revolution, where anyone is becoming able to create, download, modify, and produce design. Well, as for my favorite tool, I think it's not going to be surprise. It's a laser cutter. I love its practicality, compact use, and many uses, from making an object to cutting an apple or dinner. The second one would be a laser cutter, but it's a shame we can't put it in our pockets yet. Thank you.
Who would you like to pass the floor to?
I see Finn next to me.
Okay, hello, I'm Finn. I'm a designer and foresight practitioner, which I might explain a bit more in a minute, but it's sort of finding ways to think about the future. So what defines me as a maker? I think I'm defined by being a participatory maker and a participatory designer, which means that I'm really keen on getting people involved into the making process. It's not just me and me being hands-on, but it's everyone else being hands-on as well, and having a sort of thorough co-design process. So what's my favorite tool? I've got lots of them in front of me here. Post-its. I think these are brilliant. They're very simple, but it's a sort of simple way of democratizing a design process. Everyone has a pad, everyone can put one on the wall, and it sort of decentralizes the power within a room whenever you're trying to come up with ideas. So I think this is like a really simple tool for democracy in my eye. So yeah, I'll pass on to Justė.
Hello everyone, my name is Justė. I'm from Lithuania, but originally at the moment I'm studying integrated product design in the University of Delft in the Netherlands. And I try to frame myself as a designer working towards design for sustainability part. And in the maker movement, in the Fab Lab movement, I got involved by having an internship in one of the Fab Labs in Milano, where I got to know the basis of this open communication, open idea interchange, and I got very passionate about it. And this is why I'm here. And let's pass the floor to Sam.
Hello, my name's Sam. I'm usually based in Iceland, in Reykjavik, but I'm actually from the UK. I run at the moment like a small hack space as part of the Iceland University of the Arts, and I teach electronics and coding to the art and design students there. And yeah, this is my favorite tool, or the tool that I will show to represent me, which is a Swiss Army knife, because it's I like lightweight portable solutions, and I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. And I'll pass the floor to who's remaining. Ferran.
Hi, my name is Ferran, and I am a computer scientist and bioinformatic. So I am also very interested in creativity, so all related to digital fabrication and laser cutting and 3D printing, and mixing the computer scientist and the electronics and the developing of physical devices with digital fabrication. My favorite tool is more like a conceptual tool. I love the open hardware and open software. So the idea of the open science and the open knowledge, it's for me the key element for creation. And I think that we are all, yes. Valentina, I think.
Yes.
Yes, I am the last one.
Thanks for Thanks for giving me back the floor. Thanks for your presentation. Very inspiring and colorful as well. Elements here representing the maker movement. Yeah, thank you. And the engagement embraced also in this program. Very nice. So I'm really now, curious to go directly to to your work. What have inspired you in this program to join the program, and what are your results joining this journey? So without further ado, I think we can directly pass to the presentation of your prototypes, or your final prototypes. And I'm very excited to see the final version of all this inspiring and exciting work. And I will maybe now ask Finn to start to present what is your colorful post-it turn into.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. I will just try and make sure I've got the screen sharing settings right. Okay, can you see my screen here?
Yes, yes.
Fab. Okay, so welcome everyone. Hi, this project is called Tik Tok Futures. Pollinators in decline is the theme. So it's obviously supported by the JRC and the European Commission, but also I work closely with this youth group called YC UK. So I was really excited to work on this topic, pollinators in decline, because I think it's a topic that is obviously close to my heart in its relation to the biodiversity movement and the sort of climate crisis, but also pollinators are something so small and something that individuals can take such direct action. So I'm really interested in how we can inspire people to take sort of tangible and direct action for themselves. So this was a fantastic project to work on in that regard. I also come from a background in biochemistry, so I have this interest in how we can get members of the public and really diverse audiences to engage deeply with new scientific topics that they've never thought about before. So about me, I'm Finn. I'm a designer and foresight practitioner. I think I've said that already. I'm also an NGFP, a Next Generation Foresight Practitioner Fellow with the School of International Futures. So this is an organisation that I feel I need to mention because they've supported me over the last year to specifically experiment doing this kind of work, which is engaging local grassroots communities in imagining the future for themselves. And I think this can be a really powerful thing because often the future seems so unpredictable, so uncertain, so unknown that it can lead to sort of doubt. It can lead to inaction just because it seems so hard to really make a difference. So I'm developing a whole suite of activities, this project being one of them, which involves giving people the tools to imagine the future for themselves, to plan different futures for themselves, and hopefully through that process, giving them the agency to think, oh, actually, I can make a difference. I really can shape the future. So this is one thing that I'm trying to achieve for this project. So some goals. This project, I really wanted to work with young people. So I wanted to build their knowledge and understanding of pollinators. I wanted to build young people's sense of agency over the future. And I wanted to then use those two things to encourage new forms of action around pollinator preservation and biodiversity. Initially, I was going to do this work in the Makerspace in Ispra. Unfortunately, COVID put a small spanner into that plan. So I ended up doing it from London. The goal originally was also to make some physical sort of speculative objects with people, and that had to transform as well. So my sort of new goal I arrived at halfway through this project was how can we create videos to provocatively bring to life the biodiversity crisis through the eyes of young people, and particularly using TikTok as a sort of quick and dirty, rough medium of sketching and imagining possible futures. I think it's really powerful to bring in some kind of youth medium to really get people engaged in and excited about the project. This is a quote we had at the start of the set of workshops, which is, I try not to think about the future because I just end up tripping over what's in front of me. And I think that's the way lots of people think about the future. So hopefully this talk will give one very brief idea of a structured way that we can go about thinking of the future and really get some agency over it. So with this project, I worked with Young Creators UK. They're a creative hub for young people run by young people in South London. They offer free access to equipment, training, mental health support, digital skills, all of those things, and they're completely self-funded and self-run by doing professional media projects. They're a really, really exciting organisation and have a really diverse mix of race, gender, and people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I was really, really excited to work with this group of young people. I should say now, they are the ones who are holding the camera. I was really keen that that should be the case. So all the images and videos here are credit of YC UK. So how do I go about starting this project? So the first stage is a research stage, where I did a horizon scan, which is a sort of fancy foresight word for basically reading about the subject a lot in different kinds of mediums and piecing together sort of signals for what the future might look like. I also did 4 expert interviews with different makers from within the Joint Research Centre on getting their perspectives on the topic. And I came to this sort of futures framework, which on the top and bottom axis has technology versus nature. This framework describes 4 sort of different futures that might come about. So on the top, we maybe have a sort of more intensive approach to agriculture and biodiversity, whereas on the bottom, maybe we have more of a regenerative approach. And the other thing that obviously is really exciting about this project is the amount of action that can be taken on the citizen level. So the horizontal axis is about, will we live in a future where there's a sort of state approach to this with top-down rules and regulations about how pollinator crisis has to be solved, or will we live in a future where citizens really take the lead at their individual level? So this led to 4 very different, very rough sort of sketched visions of the future, which I've denoted by these series of icons. For example, in the top right, we have a sort of citizen-led but sort of technocentric movement. In the bottom right, we have a citizen-led sort of regenerative movement. And then on the left-hand side, it's more sort of top-down measures with different kind of policy angles. So, well, I'll say in order. Then we went on to a co-design phase of the project. I really wanted to bring these young people into the process and not just come to them with a workshop, particularly because it's a youth-led organisation and they really, really take pride in that. So we had 2 different planning meetings where we got young people together in their amazing workspace and really asked them, what do you think would make a cool project here? And then that led on to 3 days of workshops. The individual workshops looked a bit like this, in that they started by having this discovery stage where people learned about pollinators, and we also scanned through TikTok to think about different videos that we might make to convey our visions of the future. We then discussed these 4 scenarios that I just presented and chose one that we thought or at least the young people thought they really wanted to work on, either to communicate how much they liked that feature or to communicate the problems with thinking about the future in this way. Actually, lots of them chose to work on a sort of government-led intensive technology agriculture approach and made videos which I think convey sort of some of the less desirable aspects of maybe that approach to fixing the sort of pollinator crisis. Then in this second divergent and convergent stage of the double diamond, we ideated TikTok videos that we could use to imagine these possible futures. And we used TikToks firstly as a lens to think, okay, what would be going on in this kind of future? You know, what kind of videos would we see? And I think that was a way to think about the future differently. And to really get a sort of new perspective on what issues people might be talking about in the future and how we might be talking about them. And then the very last part of this 3-day workshop was actually getting the cameras and getting the phones into the hands of these young people and getting them to make their own videos. Alongside these videos, I won't dwell on this, but we also had a load of other exercises, including popping balloons, taking like images and turning them into stories about the future, and lots of sort of smaller exercises to build an ability to be imaginative, be creative, and think creatively and in a diverse way about the future. One of these was prototyping future objects, where people would imagine futures of pollinators and then create hypothetical and fictional objects that might exist in these worlds. So this is one of them, the iSun, which is a fictional device that these young people made. It's something that you take into the garden and you use it to give light to different plants and attract pollinators in sort of different areas as a way of reconnecting with those pollinators. And they also imagined in this future that it had been sort of capitalized on by tech companies and sort of big business. So I think probably this is a good time to go to the videos, which were the main way that we were communicating these. Now I'm going to try and share some of these straight from TikTok, and fingers crossed it's going to work. So here's a TikTok page. I'm going to start playing some. Valentina, you'll have to tell me if it's really not coming through. But let's have a go. I'm just going to click through them because we don't have time to look at all of them. Oh no, it's not letting me play. Oh dear. Okay. In which case, probably I won't be able to show you the videos right now. But what I can do is I can just talk through some of them. So this is a fictional news report that the young people made. This is a sort of fun TikTok video that they imagined they might see on a youth network. Oh, this one's working.
This is working.
Breaking news, the nature killers are back at it again. Here's some clips we've been sent in from today. Look what they're doing to the stunning trees around us. They're cutting them down to make new houses. News of this.
I'll just try and see if any more of these work.
Are you bored of living in the boring city life? Well, become an agricultural engineer, live out in the beautiful countryside and feel the beautiful fresh air of nature.
Okay, so hopefully that's starting to give you a sense of them, even if for some reason not all of them are working. But what I will do, because it's on TikTok, I can just post the link in the chat and
exactly.
people can browse at their leisure. Or it's at Tik Tok Futures if anyone wants to Google that themselves. So I'll post that in the chat after my presentation. Why don't, for the time being, I just go back here and finish up. I think I've got a couple of minutes, don't I? 2, 3. So yeah, that was a really exciting process. And I think for me, the key sort of exciting thing was that these young people were really getting to share their creations with the world, with the peers, and really getting the space to get their voice out there, rather than just sort of sitting in a workshop and you know, telling what they thought to me. We also did a podcast, which is on the website for the project, which is called tiktokfutures.com. I'll post that link in the chat as well. And we had some really great feedback from some of these young people. I never thought to myself that I'd be making content about bees. After these workshops, it opened my eyes and I realized the importance of pollinators. So on the left, we've got some people talking about how they learned about pollinators. And on the right, we've got some really sort of positive statements about how people changed the way they were starting to think about the future. Now I'm realistically positive about the future and hopeful we can find a solution. Or here in the bottom right, you know, teaching people futures methods changes your mentality. People won't be as scared. People will just go out and do stuff. And that's really where I wanted to get to, in that by helping people to learn the techniques, to think diversity about different futures, it would allow them to have this agency, to have this belief that they can make a difference as an individual. So finally, what's next? I think that this sort of TikTok format is really powerful. So I'm going to be trying to run some more workshops on different subjects probably, and particularly focusing it on the climate crisis. And I also want to sort of take on and try and run more workshops on pollinators as well. I've already been approached by someone that I've chatted to about running this within the UK to do a sort of national scale public consultation and have this be a small part of it. And also, you know, I'm really open to sort of running other youth engagement events using this. I think it's really important to have new ways to engage young people, to have a voice in their future. I think there's also a sort of scope for this to become an element of an official public consultation, because it combines this sort of direct communication and the ability for young people to create a larger public dialogue with the sort of workshop environment where you can really ask them, what do you think, what do you feel about these different possible futures? And that's a space where you can get young people's thoughts and opinions on these topics. And I ran this with a sort of media youth group, but I think one of the most exciting learnings from running this project was that really you don't need fancy cameras and green screens to do this kind of approach. All you really need is a phone, a smartphone in your pocket. You can pick that up, you can make a video of yourself holding a phone and talking about something as if you're in the future, and start communicating what your vision is. So yeah, if anyone is interested in doing a method like this, then please get in touch. I'd love to talk. And yeah, I think I'll probably close there and post some of those links in the chat if anyone wants to explore them later on.
Thank you very much, Finn. It was very nice, your presentation. So we get to the question at the end of the full presentation. So, but keep an eye on the Q&A box. Thanks a lot. So we move on to the next presenter. The next maker is Justė. Would you like to go?
Yes, hello, nice to meet all. And I will start sharing the presentation. One second. Okay. Hello, everyone. I don't see the screen, so I think I'm just gonna talk to the void, to my screen. My name is Justė.
Justė, you have the black bar on the top. I don't know if you shared it as a full screen. Do you want to adjust it? Yeah.
Somehow it doesn't go off. So let's just continue with the bar, but I will see that the bar is there, so it doesn't cover any text or something.
Okay, super.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Justė. I'm a master's student from TU Delft, and I also chose the topic of wild pollinators in decline. And basically, for this, it comes back a bit in the history that I started to be very attentive about sustainability part, about the nature part, and also with my studies, especially also in bachelor's, I already started exploring how to bring back nature to people in a way. So in a sense of biofilters, vertical gardens, and so on. And for this, when I saw the call for the Makerspace, the insect pollinators and pollinators in decline was some sort of topic that I wasn't aware of. And actually it was really interesting to start diving into a completely new context that I wasn't aware about before. And to continue further on, in the end, I chose to focus more on urban wild pollinators. And why wild pollinators, not the honeybees, was basically my argument that the honeybees get already most attention, and because they're the direct gain for us. And also for the wild pollinators, there's not that much attention and also less data and also less known effects of what's going to happen for the wild pollinators with increasing urbanization, agricultural use, and so on, so on. So let's say I took the challenge to explore this unknown waters of wild pollinators. So I think my framework of my presentation is going to be a bit different. I will just guide you through the process of what was the project about, how I got to my prototypes, and so on, so on. So let's start with the research. Actually, as all the projects start with some sort of knowledge that you have to gain as a background. I actually started thinking, okay, so I already see lots of bee hotels in my shops. So why do we still have the pollinator problem? Why are they still declining if there's so much solutions in the shops? And of course, that research started kind of guiding me through all the issues about let's say, the current market solutions. Also, I started figuring out what kind of problems affect the pollinators the most. So those are mainly the pesticides used from agriculture, habitat loss, and food loss, which affected the most. And of course, let's say sometimes people want to do good, but then they do a bit more harm than they expect. And this also affects in a way. But as you could see, I kind of figured out that this is a systemical problem, which has different stakeholders, different actors, different relationships, and all this affects in a very connected way. So systemic solutions do ask for, systemic problems do ask for systemic solutions. What I also learned is that, for example, the wilderness and the culture is also one of the key features of this systemic change, because if we want cities to develop in a biodiverse way, we also have to talk to people and have this dialogue with citizens of what they feel comfortable in, and also what do insects feel comfortable in. Further on, there was a lot of information, and basically, yes, I understood that biodiversity in the end needs biodiversity, because all the plants and all the insects are interconnected, they co-evoluted, and it's not that we're gonna survive with honeybees alone. We need the whole range of species for that. So let's say, very quickly, I went into the problem framing and first sketches. So I understood that if I want to tackle this problem from a systemic point of view, I have to touch the citizens, and I also have to enable them. So in a way, I figured out that I want to create a workshop wireframe and a toolkit which would, let's say, enable people for call to action to easily create habitats or floral supply, and also, let's say, support them with instructions of how to do that. So the main process, what was the most interesting process here, was that the workshop and the toolkit were developed simultaneously at the same time. So if you want to see there, I made some sort of timeline. It's not directly connected with the time, but let's say one of the journeys was actually creating the toolkit. With a deliverable of web page, instructions, and cut files, and the other direction was actually creating the whole wireframe for the workshop, which would actually be hosted, where the toolkit would be introduced. So let's first dive into the toolkit, and then I will come back to the workshop. So the first toolkit prototypes, I do understood that I love paper. I love thinking with paper, and this was one of the nicest experiences, where you actually fold stuff, you figure out what kind of shapes work, how to create this kind of insect hotel, which could be folded out from one sheet of paper. Then later on, of course, it was also a good question of the materials. So you always have this wicked triangle of, you need the waterproof material, you need sustainable material, you need the cheap material. And it was a bit of a headache for a long time. one of the solutions that was quite interesting was why not trying to infuse the cardboard paper with the beeswax and actually make this waterproof in a way. So then you have this accessible material. You have beeswax is also accessible. Paper is more sustainable than trying to make something out of plastic here. Yes, so it was also a very interesting journey of testing out the different papers, how they react in the environment, and so on and so on. In the end, I ended up with a full-scale prototype, which we put it 2 weeks in the rain in the Netherlands, and Netherlands weather in spring was awful. And it was very good for us because we tested out, let's say, the whole how the cardboard reacts to the environment, and it was all good, and the inside was dry. At the same time, the toolkit also has another element, which was initially it was thought that it would be nice to create the wildflower bed, but in the end problem got reframed because at the same time in the workshop place was already quite known, so we understood that we will have places with soil. So then we decided to kind of develop more the ground unit, which would be used as an aesthetic element close to the wild meadows. So in a way to kind of give cues of care for the people, for the passers-by, to show that this messy wilderness is intentional in this place, and it's there for a reason and not just left abandoned as a plot of the ground. Later on, we went. I traveled to the Netherlands to one of the Fab Labs in Milano, OpenDot, where they supported me with the knowledge and with the equipment. So of course, my best friend was the laser cutter here, and there I finished up. I detailed the prototypes. So this was the insect hotel, and here you can also see the background, the layouts, and also the ground unit in a way how it could be assembled. So then later on, it was all detailed. We created the web page, which hosts the main information about workshop, also instructions and cut files. And instructions were basically made just as a simple cookbook, what kind of materials you need, and then users could just follow. Along. So it, let's say, it was tried to become to be as explicit as possible, to not cause confusion. And also we created the cut files, which are also hosted on a web page, and users can download without a problem. Another direction was the workshop framework, and for this it was already in a quite early stage. It was kind of understood that for the workshop it would be nice to have the education part, the encouraging action and discussion part for the people to kind of start discussing about this problem of pollinators, of the biodiversity of these issues, and also kind of start to ask and change the perception of urban green spaces. So what is beautiful actually? Is the messy but diverse area beautiful, or do we still need this freshly cutted grass? And I'm very lucky that in this kind of journey of this project, I also partner up with Hyperink, which is a company in Milano, and they really helped me by supporting me in creating the workshop. They became close partners. In addition, they also suggested the fear of the bees as an experience, a research topic into this workshop, from where Bruno, one of the Hyperinks from Hyperink team, also made the research on how people actually react to the bees via questionnaire. So it was the brief research, the initial research, we kind of showed that it's an interesting topic to elaborate. So from then on, we partner up with Hypering, CM, and others in this part. At the same time, Hypering also started looking for a place and help finding a place and participants. And another step was actually developing further the workshop, figuring out what kind of tools we need. So from the physical tools, such as for the fear of the bees, we needed audio, we needed artificial insects and the blindfolds, to kind of these templates which would guide people to guide people in discussions. In the end, we detailed the workshop, and we held the pilot workshop at Giardino San Faustino, where we tested out the toolkit, the functionality, the usability, how do participants understand the instructions, and also the workshop framework. So what's the dynamics, what are the discussions, how do people react while discussing about it? And later on, I will show you the videos. So I will just quickly introduce what kind of main activities we did. So the first was the fear of the bees. And we used the sound. So people wear earphones and they listen to the 3D sound of the bee flying around them. At the same time, the manager was going to each of the participants and touching their hands with the artificial insect to see their reactions. Afterwards, they had a reflection round, which outcomes I will tell you later on. Next one was the activity of act and mapping canvas. So this was held after a short initial lecture about the biodiversity, the pollinators, and we kind of tried to give different teams different problems, and they just started discussing out. Later on, we tested out the toolkit and installation. Now maybe I will go to the movie so you could see it more in action rather than the slides. Do you still see my screen?
I see black now.
You see black now. Okay.
So maybe you stop sharing and try again?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be here, and no, you can't see the screen, right?
No.
Okay. Again. Okay, now it should be fine. You see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's enjoy the small pilot video.
So I will ask you 2 questions. Write down, don't say anything to anyone, and elenco puntata, ragazzi. 1, just don't write the question, just the answers.
insetti impollinatori che sono ghiotti di piante che fanno male a quelle o che fanno male direttamente, che piacciono loro o che fanno direttamente.
Ecosystem, like with water and
the eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem, is that the dry soil is dead. So wherever you find plants, you find wet soil. It's wine. The wine producer are directly infected by this insect, and also the wine distributors. So, for example, restaurants with this insect, the wine would cost more. So we found that actually this insect put the eggs on tidy grass. So we were talking before about tidy grass wilderness, and in a kind of way a clean garden is not the proper solution because it causes these kind of insects.
So, for example, honeybees and other wild insects can affect animals like birds, for example sparrows. Sparrows being eaten by fox or hawks, so they are also dependent on these species. And basically all those, let's say, 4 angles are interconnected because hunters, they hunt foxes, so it means that they use it probably for fur, but humans at the end are affected as well. So from each angle it comes to humans. So yeah, this is what we found.
Okay, returning to the sharing part, sharing screen. Okay, so after the workshop, what we drew out. So let's say we put the workshop in the European context, and with the, let's say, in the European Commission, more and more, let's say, attention is given to the pollinator decline and the biodiversity problems. And what we kind of understood is that this workshop gave a nice new insight to the participants, and also fostered these kind of discussions between completely different people with different backgrounds, different nationalities, and they could actually reach consensus, and they could actually have nice, interesting findings and discussions together. So we were very happy with the, let's say, diverse participants. So those were students, different age groups, and so on and so on. So we could really test out how different people react to this kind of framework. And also another important part is that we are striving towards more biodiverse and green city development. And with this workshop, we also tested out 2 main things. So the first one, as you saw, is the fear of the bees. So from the findings, we saw that different people from different contexts actually react differently to the insects and the pollinators. So for example, people from more urban areas were more threatened, felt more fear, and were a bit reluctant to kind of invite insects to the cities. While people from more rural backgrounds, they are quite used to that, so they were completely positive about it. And also the wilderness and the culture part was also, we kind of try to understand. So what should we actually do with this part when we want to invite the wilderness? But we also want people to feel that they are living in a nice city, they're living in a beautiful city, in a comfortable city. So it's a long way. I believe these directions are they need a lot of research on this, but we found that those were very interesting directions to go. And so for the further vision is basically, yes, me and partners from Hyperink and from other partners are actually thinking about continuing developing this further, because those are very interesting contexts and visions, and we want to develop the toolkit even further and kind of enable citizens to have more, let's say, more power and more strength in helping to preserve the biodiversity in the cities, to help with taxonomy, so counting the insects, understanding what kind of let's say what kind of elements and what kind of actions in the city affect the biodiversity status. And yes, and that was clear that citizens, governments, and city ecosystems are interconnected here. And by enabling citizens to act and to understand more about this problem is going to enable governments to start changing the environment, the legislation, which will in the end affect ecosystems. And also the citizens themselves, with the citizens themselves already have a lot of power by just start creating biodiversity around them. I hope I'm not over time, but I think I am done.
Thank you very much, Justė, for sharing this presentation, very unique whiteboard and also nice video. I will directly pass the floor to Ferran to start presenting his work. Ferran, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Wait a second.
And I take the time.
Because host disabled participant screen sharing, it's disabled. So
you should be able, actually.
It's I say it's disabled. Why? Oh, it's host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you check it?
Yeah.
By the way, I can start explaining maybe.
No, just wait a second, Ferran, because I think we need some support. No, I will try to give you the co-host again.
Okay.
Because you were co-host already, but can you try?
Yeah. Wait a second. No, host disabled. I don't know why. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay. I don't know.
Can we have someone else maybe try to share their screen?
Yeah, you can. Maybe you can, Valentina, put the screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to find your presentation.
See, I send it.
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Give me a second because I found it now. Okay, here it is. So you
I'm going to, I'm talking so you can change the slides meanwhile.
But can you see that? Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm seeing. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So, okay, slides. Next one. Okay. My project is called Pollinator in a Box. Okay, I'm Ferran. My approach is a little bit different than the other projects because maybe it's less physical, but it's physical in some way, but it's less physical and more abstract. Okay, so I'm a computer scientist and bioinformatic. So the idea was mixing my interest for the makers, for digital fabrication and electronics, and mix it with the programming and mixing with the education, because I am also a teacher. So the idea was mixing all these competences, okay, all these disciplines to create some kind of different project. So the idea was, I said, mixing programming, bioinformatics, electronics, okay, and digital fabrication, in this case, laser cutting especially, and creates some kind of educational project. So next one, if Valentina, yes, perfect. So the idea is that create an artistic and interactive project with the interest of the education. So the idea is create an educational project that it's like a simulation of a virtual ecosystem when you have some kind of pollinators and flowers around. So the kids, or maybe all the attendants, okay, kids or adults anyway. So the idea is that the people that it's interacting with this simulation can learn how the pollinators life, okay, and the behavior of the pollinators in real time. So you can change the different kind of parameters that you have of the flowers and the pollinators, and see different species, a different kind of pollinators and different kind of flowers in the same time in the simulation. So you can change and see how the system, these virtual ecosystems, evolves in time. Okay, so the idea is that you can learn some basic patterns and basic behavior of this interaction between pollinators and flowers, changing the parameters of the simulation in real time. So next. The idea of this project was begins before the pollinator, because I'm not an expert of pollinators. So I'm very interested in bioinformatics, but I'm not an expert of pollinators. So before this Pollinators of a Box project, I created another project called Livebox. This Livebox was some kind of similar but more abstract project. So the idea, you can see it here, was a box, because I did it with the laser cutter machine. So you have like a small box with a screen, and as you see in the picture, you have some knobs here in the left side. So you can put it, exactly, thank you. You can put it on your I don't know, in your dining room, and it's like I don't know how, like a virtual fishbowl. So you can see how different species with different colors it's like a Game of Life, but I don't know if you know Game of Life project, but it's visually similar, but it's very different in the way that it's programmed. So the idea is you have this LEDs with different colors, so you can change these knobs and see how this ecosystem, these virtual ecosystems, evolves through time. Okay, so this project, it's the origin of the Pollinators of a Box project. The idea was to transform this project to a pollinator simulation. So thanks to JRC and especially Simon Potts, that helped me a lot with this, to help me to understand how pollinators works, and how the interaction of the pollinators with the flowers, how it works. So I can try to recreate this and simulate this in a code. Okay, so next one. Okay, you can see here it's a screen capture, okay, of the simulation running. So the idea is you can see these different squares and different circles. So you can see how these colors are the flowers, and you can see how the pollinators, it's going around the flowers, and see how the different colors of flowers. So each color it's from a different flower species, and different circle colors are from different pollinator species. So the idea is you can see how each flower evolves, and it depends mostly on the parameterization that you did, or you are doing in real time with the simulator. Okay, so I have a video, but maybe you cannot run it here. Let's see. You cannot play it. Maybe you can open YouTube. I don't know what happens if you click here.
It's visible, no?
No, it's not doing it. Don't worry. You can see in the last slide. I have some YouTube links, so you can share it, or maybe you can click it and share it on your screen. But
okay,
don't worry.
Because it was working in my screen, so I will go back to your presentation.
Okay, don't worry. It's not a big deal. So the idea is you can see in the simulation running. So you will see that it's different colors that are growing and shrinking and moving. So they're spreading around the virtual ecosystem. So you can have all the information about how this what is happening. So okay, this pollinator it's doing that, or this flower it's growing in this growth rate. So you can have all the data, and you can download the data, so you can analyze the data and see how the simulation, each element, each species of the simulation, how it changed through time, and see what's happening with the whole ecosystem, virtual ecosystem.
And
okay?
I will try again to share it. Just give me a second.
Okay. Oh, okay, you have here, perfect. Maybe you can, now it's starting, so perfect. The idea is you're seeing these circles moving around, so they are different kind of pollinators, and you see how these flowers, like it's the squares, are starting to grow. Maybe, Valentina, if you go to in the middle, more or less, so you will see more, okay, you're seeing this ecosystem is more evolved, so you can see this kind of ratio of pollination ratio and amount of each species, and then you have what's happening in the right part of the screen. You will see what is happening in real time. So okay, a green flower is pollinated, so you can work on that and see what's happening on real time. Okay, so I think I see that the green ones are at the best. Okay, so we come back maybe to the slides.
Sharing.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries. I go back to this one. Yeah.
Perfect. So, okay. So next part is how we can control this simulation. So we have different approach to control this simulation, because I'm trying to engage it, that the kids can be engaged to the simulation, and they are very interested. I try that that the simulation will be some kind of catchy to the kids. So we have different approach to how to control this simulation. The first one is the more efficient one, but maybe it's not the best for the kids. So the idea is we have this kind of controller application. So it's a web application. You can connect your mobile phone or your computer to this website, and you have a screen with a real-time simulation, and you can change these knobs, okay, these slides. You can change the efficiency, the pollination efficiency, the life expectancy, the wind reproduction. So it's the non-pollinator reproduction. Okay, so you can have different parameters, and you can change and see what is happening in real time. So the idea is you can define all this and see what is happening. And the next one, the next slide, it's the creation of digital fabrication creation. So you can have a controller, a physical controller with different knobs, as you see, a lot more knobs than the previous version, with you see in the left side of the box that you have 5 knobs. Here you have a lot of knobs, and you can change in real time also moving the knobs the simulation. So you are you are projecting the simulation on a big screen or in the wall, and you in real time you can change all the elements, the parameters, and see what is happening on the simulation. So this controller can work with a USB cable, or also you can use a wireless connection. So the idea is you can physically change these knobs and see what is happening. Okay, next one. Okay, the idea, it's the project, as I said in the presentation, I love open source, I love open hardware. So I think that the sharing of information, the sharing of knowledge, it's a key element to the science. So the idea is it's very important to share all the projects that we do. So if you are interested, you can download this code, you can change the code, you can adapt to your needs. The idea is that you can use it for your own interest and change whatever you need, and use to share it and show it to the kids. And I think that there are a lot of interesting concepts that you can show to the kids. For example, you can see, okay, for a very basic example that it runs for pollinators or whatever. So, no, for example, okay, if you have a pollinator that it's super efficient, or a species, okay, whatever it is, it's super efficient recollecting nectar, I don't know. Okay, so it's super efficient. In the beginning, it will seems to grow so fast, and it will seems that it's the better approach. Okay, it's so efficient gathering the nectar, and it's growing so fast. Okay, it's cool. But if you see how this evolves, when this pollinator can, or this species, I don't know, it's taking so much, gathering so much energy or nectar or whatever from the plants, okay, and this will end badly, because the energy from the plants, okay, will get out, okay, they will finish, and then the plants, the pollinators or the secondary level species, okay, they will die. So the idea is not gather so much, but be efficient. So it's more important to be efficient, and that your consumption will be to improve your efficiency of consumption. It's so much important than your efficiency in the gatherings, because you can maintain the whole ecosystem stable if you are efficiency in consuming, but if you will run out in the you will crash and finish and spoil your ecosystem if you are very efficient in consuming, but you are consuming too much. Okay, you can gather too much, but you are not efficient in consuming this energy. So it's like this kind of concepts are the concepts that you can show to the kids, and they can prove in real time. So they can change the parameters and say, oh, okay, if I do that, I did that, this, I don't know, this species, it's taking so much energy, okay, they will die. In the beginning, they grow so fast and then die. So what's happening here? This kind of concepts, I think, that are the interesting concepts that I try to show in this kind of simulation. So next one, you can see here, okay, the idea is you can use this this program, you can use this the controller to create this kind of, as you can see in the picture, is like very black, but it's a dark space. But the idea is that you can put in some kind of show and tell, or you can use it in a space, in an educational space. So you can run the simulation, put okay, project on a screen, put the controller in the middle, and create some kind of interactive installation, and mostly educational installation, and you can use it to bring some kind of, okay, bring some class, and then the kids can work on this simulation, and then they can express their what they think about this, okay, and what they learn about this. So I think that it's a very interesting educational simulation with the kids, okay? So more or less is this the project is like this. So okay, you can go, you can go. So the idea is what I said. So thank you very much. If you want to see some videos, you have videos on the YouTube, okay, and you can get the code, you can try the code, you can do everything you want, okay? So there's more information on my website, my email, the videos, and thank you very much. And thank you, Valentina, for the assistance.
Yeah, no worries. Luckily, we solved the technical issue. That can always happen. We had a solution. Thanks a lot. You can maybe, Ferran, if you want, you can also paste it yourself in the chat, any links or the link to the YouTube video that we show.
Okay, perfect. I'm doing that. Okay.
Okay. Super. Then thank you very much, Ferran. So we go to the next maker, and I will pass the floor to Dalia. Really looking forward to hear your presentation.
Hello. I would like to welcome you to the presentation of my project called originally Prototype X. Before I start, I just want to point out that the final object source codes and documentation is to be found on my website, which is indicated below if anyone is interested. I started this project because in my older projects, I focused a lot on youth digital fabrication technologies and participative design. So when I have seen an open call for makers from the JRC on the subject of youth and the pandemics, it seemed like an interesting fit and a good opportunity to develop my interest, help the others, and make something interesting. So I drew up a proposal for a participative project that will revolve around a group of young people to together develop a prototype of which they would benefit themselves in learning new skills and hopefully better emancipation in regards of their technological and design capabilities. The form and the purpose were originally intentionally unspecified as they would develop themselves as the project progressed. There were a few ways to imagine it. The result could have gone from a tiny gadget through artistic object, maybe even to public space design. The few topics on the mind were like, for example, how to be socially distanced but together, or spread COVID-19 awareness, or deal with intergenerational rupture. The prototype itself was destined to implant itself in the local context of its creators. The group of youth, which in the end happened to be in the local social center. So once JRC gave my project a green light, I can hear me well because I had my connection is weak. You hear me good?
There was some lagging at some point, but let's see, probably you recover the connection.
So I've invited local social center EBS Booster in Beaucaire in south of France to collaborate and organize a group of young people with an intent that the fabricated prototype would benefit their space. Afterwards, I got in contact with Fab Lab of Nîmes if they would be willing to host us so the participants could learn new technologies and prototype the object with me. And once all the parties were on board, the project was ready to start in February. So the group that Booster put together consisted of 5 young students: Amina, Suad, Noor, Fadwa, and Salim. They were between 17 and 20 years old. Fadwa just finished her high school in administrative management. And the rest of the group were university students studying to be journalists, education counselors, and work in banking. All of them are currently working at the Booster Social Center. either as an internship, a civic service, or just employed. The booster itself works predominantly with the North African and South American local population and their descendants, and helps them with various practical and administrative tasks and processes. It also accompanies young people in professional integration, which was partially an intent of this project. So we have started with the brainstorm phase to introduce the participants into the world of makers and digital fabrication, and begin various reflections to define the purpose and nature of the prototype, formalize it, and begin to visualize it. In the prototyping phase, the participants developed and experimented some basic technological and design skills and further advanced the prototype. Afterwards, we moved on to the intensive final prototyping and fabrication week at the Fab Lab of MIR, and finished with testing the prototype in space of the booster. All in all, this took about 6 months. In our initial sessions, we have discussed and identified some issues the young people, including the participants, are encountering due to the pandemics. As you can see, such as amplified impact of discrimination and abuse, precariousness, depression, isolations, and many more. We had several ideas on what we could focus on, but the problem that really stood out was the isolation. So we have decided to focus on that part. However, we had a few doubts if we would be able to practically address it instead of, for example, virtual world. And also due to the possibility that by the time this prototype would be finished, the worst part of the pandemics would be over, which has proven to be a wishful thinking. So we have decided to orient ourselves more into an artistic direction. So in the end, we have decided to create an object that could open a discussion about what we were going through and allowed us to share it between each other. It would serve as a sort of a witness, remembrance of our experiences. At first, we have imagined it as a sort of a metaphorical tree, and experiences and emotions as its branches and leaves. The tree would organically grow as more stories and experiences would be gathered. Also, to make things more fun and give some context to the space they were at and improve their skills, I've also inserted some fabrication workshops and general discovery of the make movement. We did some hands-on experimentation with 2D and 3D design and fabrication with 3D printing and laser cutting. I have also tried to introduce them into the philosophy and history of the maker movement, and through my past object. Oops. As the project progressed, it started to take a form and content. We have slowly started to define the function, basic form, purpose, various components, and materials. See, it's lagging again. Okay. It makes them. And materials, as I said, the tree got the form of a rocket, which first of all is in the logo of the social center, but also according to participants, it makes them dream about the future and better times. So the principal object in form of a rocket would serve as sort of a skeleton for the modules, which would interrogate the impact of the pandemics on life of people that frequent booster. The rocket would later serve for other purposes in the lobby of the booster, such as to showcase the project, distribute flyers, information, and many other possibilities. We could conceive our interrogation modules the way that they could be also reused later by booster, for example, for visitor satisfaction survey and so on. So here you can see the first sketches of the functionality of the object and its modules. Well, regarding the modules, it took quite a long reflection on what and how we wish to capture the emotions and stories. There were many options on the table, for example, just to capture the emotions, stories, secrets, the losses and gains, or create surveys, or maybe write a letter to each other through the object. So in the end, we have decided to collect the experience and sentiments in two ways. One more quantitative to create a color mosaic, and one more qualitative that would explore them further. As you can see in this first sketch, we were also considering some electronic components such as color and movement sensors, but we have abandoned these ideas since the confinement hit. We didn't have really time to go into electronics. And also we were doubting if they were really necessary for the object to function. After our brainstorming session with JRC social scientists, we took a final decision about what and how we wish to examine and achieve. The purpose of our object is to share experiences and start a conversation about what did the pandemic do to us. Also to see maybe some other points of views and discover how our lives were affected. The purpose of our surveys is not really a scientific research, but rather look an insight into each other's lives and hopefully some feeling that even though we were isolated, we were not alone. So to this end, we have basically decided to ask people of Booster two things. What did you go through and how? The design of the rocket also went through various transformations, as you can see in this little forest of rockets. Sadly, due to the confinement, this part had to be done mostly by myself at home with occasional online exchanges with the participants. During this time, I have simplified the design to make it more subtle while keeping in mind the fabrication and assembly process. The round shape of each level was really not working very well, especially for the implementation of the modules. So I tried to play with various forms, such as hexagon, octagon, and many gons, until I arrived at the most logical and practical conclusion, a square. So in June, I have spent an intensive full week in the Fab Lab of NIM to finalize the object with occasional help from the participants who were willing. So I've started with small models to test and verify the assembly and stability of the object. The material used was 1 centimeter thick plywood from poplar. Since the material was not completely flat, it became quite difficult to cut it with laser because the focus was often off. However, after I managed to find a good solution to cut each drawing into small pieces and cut them separately, it went quite smoothly, and the whole object was cut in a matter of hours. I'm also aware that maybe CNC would have been more suitable for this, but since I introduced the participants into the laser technology, I wanted to stick with it so they could better observe and get something from it. However, the plans, I think they should be maybe with some minor modification. They should work on the CNC mill as well. So then we prepared the components to be assembled. They first needed to be cleaned from the ashes, painted on the edges and sanded. Oops. So with the electrical sander, this part went really quickly and the result were pretty neat. Here you can see all the pieces ready to be assembled. As for the assembly itself, I was quite surprised how easy it went. It only took a few minutes. The only difficulty was the last assembly of the top and bottom part, but with the help of a few people, it went well and the object was quite stable. Yep, sorry. And then just 2 more layers of varnish. And the object was done. On the right, you can appreciate the mothership with all its baby ships. Then it was a time to move into our interrogation modules. So for the colorful chips destined for the mosaic part, where each represented various areas of life that have been affected by the pandemics. We have used 3mm plywood, and we spray painted it according to the color code, then engraved and cut. We have also created a little triangular boxes to store and distribute them, and began the test for the receiver that was to be attached on the object. For the mosaic receiver, we have used 3mm transparent acrylic glass to create an impression that the mosaic is sort of floating in space and would not interfere too much with the design of the main object. And for the stories part, I have developed a stackable system so the users could assemble them themselves and arrange it the way they want or they find suitable. Originally, I wanted to use cardboard, but on the last moment, I switched to polycarbonate that is much more durable, more aesthetic, and most importantly, it allowed the possibility for further reuse. So this is the final form. The paper template can be attached with stickers for photos and later removed and replaced with something completely different, for example, kids drawing or photos or whatever else. And finally, the rocket was ready to be installed and tested. The participants who work at Booster were there to explain the project to the visitors and help and encourage them to contribute. Me, myself, I checked in every few days for the progress, which grew steadily. So these are the photos taken on Friday. I was happy to see that it was a success and participation was quite satisfactory. It was filled with stories and experiences, and people were stopping by to check it out. So the receiver contained chips that represented how the lives of people were affected by the pandemics. It contained a big variety of answers and not just one that stood out. Personally, I expected to see more yellow, which represented liberty. But apparently for many of the contributors, the pandemic's most important impact was diverse. It's in French, so the red represents mental and physical health. The purple represents relations. There was also a wooden chip that represented other areas where people were free to write, but most from this group indicated everything in French. And here you can see the individual stories stuck onto each other, of which content I will get more into the next slide. But in total, we have collected about 160 engagements and 36 stories. All in all, people stopped at the object, many just read, some threw in chips, the others wrote stories and sentiments, and hopefully our objective to allow others share and feel less isolated in their experiences serves some purpose. So here you can read a few of the interesting fragments from the lives of people that contributed. Some were positive, some more negative. Some people were confronted with loss, some have found love. Some seen their lives evolve, but some just felt alone. So thank you for listening. Of course, all in all, the prototype is a few things to improve as anything else, but being open source, I'm going to leave that now to collective creation. Thanks to its easy fabrication and assembly and accessible materials, I believe it can find many uses in many places, whether to serve as a customer satisfaction element, vitrine, or maybe just a simple shelf. And if I still have time, I would like to thank everyone who participated and allowed this project to happen. It was an interesting journey, and I hope it benefited participants in many ways. For sure, me personally, I feel like I learned a lot from it. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dalia. So we go straight to the last maker. Please, I call to the floor Sam. And to the all audience, if you have any question, please use the Q&A box that you find in the bottom of your screen. Thanks, Sam. It's you.
Okay, is that all good? Is it visible?
Yes, yes,
Great.
yes.
Hey everyone, my name's Sam. Yeah, I'm part of the Pollinators in Decline strand that most of the other makers are part of. And this is the name of my project. It's Unidentified Flying Animals, and it was looking at open source field kits and tools for watching winged insects. I'm a really enthusiastic recorder of pollinators and identifier as well on iNaturalist, which is like a citizen science platform for recording biodiversity. And those three kind of core issues that I see in citizen science recording on platforms like iNaturalist. One is the standardization of records. That is, when you're recording, you know, if you go out in the field and you're recording all the insects around you, a lot of people will just choose to record the bees or the birds, or, you know, the more charismatic colorful animals. And so I wanted to address ways that this could be more standardized, more systematic methods of recording. The other one is perceptions of insects. A lot of people just won't record insects because they feel that they are scared of them, or they hate them even in some cases. And so I wanted to explore our relationship with insects and how we could challenge that. And the third aspect was the resolution of records. A lot of citizen science records use photography, and there's like a limit to how high quality the photography is and whether or not we can actually identify the species that they've recorded. And these are the three kind of responses to those three strands. So the camera trap experiments, that's the way that I wanted to explore addressing standardization. Maybe we can have a camera trap on a plant, and we could record every single insect that comes on that plant for an entire day, and that will give us a more systematic recording for the day. The second one was exploring like selfies with pollinators, or especially with flies, because I think people are particularly hateful of flies, even though they're really crucial to pollination. And I wanted to explore augmented reality in this context to see if there was any kind of relevant use for it. And the third one was 3D scanning. And this was kind of more of a speculative idea, thinking about the future of biological recording with insects, and imagining, you know, if we could get really high resolution detail, how that would come about, and potentially perhaps it would be through some sort of like miniature 3D scanner of some kind. So these are kind of examples of existing camera traps that you can find in research papers on insects, as you can see. So you have some which are like using DSLR cameras and have some sort of portable battery, and then they stabilize the plant. And this is quite reproducible, but maybe more expensive. And you can buy like motion triggers as well for DSLR cameras, but yeah, that's like an added expense again. Then you also have these more bespoke setups where they've obviously, you know, they've built something specifically for the job, perhaps using a microcontroller or a microcomputer like Raspberry Pi. And then you also have there is actually something on, I think it was just on Amazon that I found this, that is just like a phone setup for recording birds coming out of bird boxes. But I couldn't really find anything that was exploring use of phones as camera traps for insects. So that was, that was the approach that I wanted to explore, just using a basic phone setup with a simple phone macro lens that you can get, and a really basic tripod that will cost. So basically, like the cheapest method that we could, a most reproducible method that we could use to experiment with this. My first attempts were just using an Android phone and little Gorilla tripod. And the main problems were there was at that time of year in the UK where I was doing the tests, there weren't enough insects per flower to test it easily. The weather wasn't very good, which is one of the reasons for that. And the resolution image I could get on the Android phone wasn't great. There was also focusing issues as well. So I ended up, and the good thing about Android though, and the reason why I started with that was because there is actually like an existing app for camera trapping on the Android, but it's it's not really built for this. And there's like with these ready-made apps, there's not so much kind of flexibility you have in adapting them for your needs. And I didn't have a lens for an Android phone anyway. So I used my iPhone instead, and as I had a macro lens for that, and although ideally we would build an app on the iPhone itself, I looked into this, and it was like quite a kind of complex process to undertake for this at this particular time. So I ended up just using the laptop to access the camera. So the camera is like a live feed into the laptop, and then I was able to write some code or modify some code in order to really do what I want, to detect any kind of movement on the screen. And this is what the view looked like from a laptop, basically. I should say this is at the Shropshire Wildlife Trust, who really kindly gave me access to the garden, where they have lots of bee hotels, and they've just really like built up a great pollinator habitat there, with a diverse range of plant species and what have you. And these are the results from the camera trap. So it ended up being pretty functional. This was like, this is quite a decent level of resolution to get through this sort of automated process. And this is enough, that you can go to genus level. This is one of the kind of the feedback from one of the scientists at JRC initially when we first spoke about this was the limitation of resolution. And but yeah, there is like a degree of resolution that we can reach through this. The main limitation I found was that we would have to zoom in on a single flower and or a single set of flowers. This is on a yarrow, and yeah, the number of pollinators that will actually visit it in a period of time, it was maybe like 3 in half an hour or something. So this is quite kind of slow going. You want to leave it there the entire day, ideally, which is it's not so fun as a citizen scientist when there's lots of other things flying around. You kind of want to just go and record all that, but there's potential there, I think, still in having a kind of distributed and reproducible format for recording. The next one was exploring our relationship with pollinators and looking at augmented reality and some sort of selfies. I started with this one just through recording insects just by drawing like a smiley face on my finger, as I have in the mock-up image. And the nice thing I realized through this as well was that when you have this and on your hand, and if you approach some insects, they will just crawl onto your finger. And this was a nice experience just to have the insect actually on me while I was documenting it. I then started to use the smiley face as like an anchor point for augmented reality. This is using Spark AR, which is like a bit of software specifically for making filters with Facebook and Instagram. And this is using a 3D model, just like a ready-made 3D model of someone named Jared that I found on Thingiverse. And so yeah, I've got it so it's like triggering when it sees the anchor point on my finger, and then I'm taking photos next to the pollinator. I should mention that flashing effect that you're seeing isn't actually visible to the pollinator. That's just internal to the phone. It's just like a kind of part of the user interface. So it's not quite as invasive as it seems. I then started to modify this to think of it more of like something for photographing selfies. I ended up using like a 2D version of myself rather than a 3D version, as it's not so easy to get a 3D scan of yourself using a phone at a high resolution, whereas a 2D image is kind of easier to sort out. So I thought this was more reproducible by other people. I didn't really want it. I'm not really into selfies. I'm not that kind of person, and I didn't really want to take pictures of my face with the insects. So I started exploring using celebrities instead. This was augmenting David Bowie next to a bug. I like this because it looked quite alien. And I did like a whole range of celebrities where I did like videos of them augmented next to the pollinators. This is one of my favorites, was this crazy old lady watching these soldier beetles. So yeah, this it kind of achieved what I wanted to experiment with, but I think my kind of main takeaway from this is maybe just that the technology, I'm not sure the technology in the way that I experimented it was adding that much, but and the most exciting thing actually was just really having the insect on my hand and being able to experience yeah, just getting used to kind of holding or letting these insects roam about on my hand, and just being, yeah, shifting my kind of awareness and of the insects and how I interact with them. But there are kind of like maybe more practical uses of the technology though, and me and Justė talked about use in her workshop of maybe using like augmenting insects onto people's hands as a way of dealing with of people's fear of insects. So that's maybe another approach that could be explored. And then the final aspect was this 3D scanning idea, which was more speculative, but I started off anyway, just seeing what the limits were of 3D scanning. I got one of the new 3D scanners that's out for our Hackspace in Iceland, and this is like a phone-based one. And I did some experiments with it, but it's really like the resolution is so limited. You're not actually going to increase the kind of resolution that you already get through recording with a DSLR, where you really need to get kind of look at the kind of like the bristles, the hairs on the insects and stuff to get really high resolution. So this wasn't really very practical. But another thing that I was doing at that time was I was experimenting with CO2, which is used as an alternative to, because often with insects, when you're recording, you have to actually kill them to, or the scientists and taxonomists at least, they kill them in order to get the highest level of resolution they can, and like make a really, the crucial biological records are often like this. But CO2 is kind of another method that you can use just to knock them out, and so it's, yeah, like a less invasive version. And I felt this was more kind of like suited to citizen scientists. Maybe I think citizen scientists in general don't want to be killing these creatures. I think that's quite a difficult barrier to overcome with citizen scientists. So I wondered about these knockout options, and I took that. This is like the next prototype. or a couple of prototypes later, where I'm just using bike inner tubes as well, in order to connect and this is actually like a bike pump, but I'm connecting it to the plastic tub to give a bit more of a solid connection. Ideally as well, like in some research papers, I can see that they hold flies and insects unconscious using a kind of drip feed of CO2. And so the top section that I've got on the bottom right there, that was kind of an experiment with that, but this is still a work in progress. I haven't figured out yet a good way to achieve like a drip feed to keep an insect unconscious for a bit longer. When you knock them out, you have maybe like a minute or two to document them, so it can be a bit limiting. But there's often it's a massive increase in the kind of resolution that you can get. But some scientists will argue that it's actually more ethical to kill them, and whether you agree or not, it's an interesting topic of debate, I think. And I wanted to understand a bit more about this next level of resolution that you get through actually taking specimens. So I did actually do some. I did actually take some specimens myself, just to understand the process, and also I realized that you can actually find a lot of insects, dead insects, and these are also really important records. But most people, I think, don't want to be dealing with dead insects and recording dead insects. So I was also experimenting and looking into ways that we could display them that would make this process of storing and collecting dead flies a little bit more kind of public friendly, if you like. And this was kind of the experiment that I did with that. So yeah, that's those are the experiments and where I've got to so far. I'll be sharing most of this on Instructables and putting the files for the code and the AR experiments on my GitHub, and I'll also be raising some of this on iNaturalist and seeing what people have to add to it and how they think it could be built upon. So yeah, thank you very much, Valentina, for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Okay, thank you for your presentation, all of you. It was very inspiring, very interesting. So I think I should open the floor to questions, but I've checked the box and there are no questions so far. So maybe I just try to encourage the audience to raise them up. Maybe now we can dedicate some minutes to address them, to address your questions and send it to the makers. You can also reach me in the functional mailbox of the JRC Makerspace, and I will make sure that the questions will go to the makers and they will all get answered by them. So this is also no problem if there are no live question at the moment. Maybe just waiting for some of the question coming from the audience to come up. Maybe I can ask you collectively something just to break the ice of this questions part, and maybe you can start replying one by one about looking at the past, so looking at the process and all the work that you have done during the program. What do you think it was the biggest challenge that you faced, apart from COVID, of course, and not being able to join the group at the physical JRC Makerspace? What do you think was the biggest challenge for developing your prototype during the program? Who wants to start?
I'm happy to jump in and go first if that works. Sorry, my camera's off. I had to disconnect my camera and move room.
Yeah. No problem.
I'm here though. Yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge was probably part of the experience of working with young people, and particularly a sort of youth-led group, was that their philosophy is very much about getting people involved who really want to be involved, and making everything very optional. So I know we had a sort of small crisis just before we were going to run these workshops, where we were having this voluntary sign up, and not many people signed up of the right kind, of the right age group that we were aiming for. So at the last minute, we had to sort of redesign all of our communications, try and refocus the workshops for a different age group, and shorten it to try and make it more attractive. So yeah, I think the co-design process was useful, having young people involved in designing it, but also then we had to be very, very light on our feet, and it was good to learn that process.
Sorry, I thought I was muted. Yeah, indeed. This is, and it was really, really important that you took like this this action like quite fast to rearrange and redesign this to have participants. We want to go next. Replying to the challenge question.
I could go. Because I took the systematic approach in a way to this problem. I did a lot of research, I read a lot of papers, and at some point you feel very overwhelmed with all the information, all the how-tos, how not tos, and so on and so on. So what I understood is that diverging, let's say reading about it, expanding the knowledge, figuring out what kind of ideas you want to develop, is a crucial part, but also converging and actually making sense of all this information, all these approaches and how they come to the big picture was, let's say, most the work and what the mind was spinning mostly about.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, simplifying things after you get the all knowledge is very difficult, but it's crucial, you know, to get into like a very focused things that you wanna do and you wanna work on. Yeah, important point. Ferran, Dalia, Sam. No challenges? All good?
No, yeah. For example, I think that going from an abstract point of view, so a very conceptual point of view, to a more specific, a more real behavior, like in this case, the pollinators, I think that was very challenging to me, because I am more comfortable working in the world of ideas more than in the world of facts. So it's complicated to work with the real things. So I think it's complicated but very interesting, because you think that you see that what you're doing is some kind of real. So you are doing things that has maybe not an impact, but a version in the real world. So I think that this is the best challenging, but also the best and rewarding thing. Yes.
Yeah, and it's also important to have a kind of translator. So since you are here, Ferran, speaking, there is Patricia that raised a question about, can your box is accessible to elementary or secondary school, and if this, how would be possible? I guess you shared already some links, but maybe you want to address this question.
Yeah, okay. The original box, like, okay, if you are talking about the boot box, okay, so you see in the slides, you can build it. I have some instructions on how to build that box and how to buy all the components of the box, and you can upload the program and run it wherever you want. But the Pollinators version, it's because it's a bigger simulation. It's prepared to work in a full HD screens, or maybe a projector or something like this. So if you want to build this small box, you can do it, and I can send you the instructions. And if you want to run the Pollinator simulator, you need only a computer And that's all. You can use the application, the web application, so you can run in a computer, a screen, and that's all. But if you want to build the controller, or you can build, if you can build the box, you can do it in the. I can send you all the instructions, or you can use my website.
Maybe I can try to establish a direct connection.
Yeah, no problem.
Between
if
you
you're
and...
interested in running this in your school, you can share my email and you can talk. We can talk about this. Yes, no problem. I'm super happy to do it.
Yeah, well, I would like to take also the opportunity to raise another question to Justė, who was just speaking before you, Ferran, about how people, the people had some fears about the insect, how this, sorry, the question is gone. What could they help them to adjust their life in the city? I mean, after this workshop, what do you think they will benefit from attending? I mean, from your project point of view.
I think I missed the question a bit. Was it where?
Yeah, I mean, the question is about like people that have already, they have fear of insect. This, how your project and what could help them to adjust, I mean, their life to habits in the city with insects around, no? So.
Yeah. So in a way, we first, for this pilot workshop, we kind of focus more on the research part, on, let's say, to test out how do people actually experience the haptic touch and the sound, and what are the reactions? Do they feel threatened? Do they feel not? So it was basically more an exploration part. And later on in the discussions, we kind of first, let's say, the manager of this part was basically letting people reflect on their own experience. So let's say, evaluate how they reacted to the haptic touch, how they reacted to the sound around them, and later on they shared within the group of their experiences. So I think in a way, communicating about this between people helps in a discussion part, hearing how others react, hearing what other people use and experience. But also what was interesting, that listening 2 times of the audio also helped reduce the fear. And in addition, between the whole activity, we had this little tour around Giardino San Faustino, and there's also beehives, which are held by another association. So actually, people had experience to see the beehives in a distance, which already kind of helped adjusting. Let's say the insects are there, and so on and so on.
The distance,
so let's say, yeah, mostly it was based on research, but we also found that these effects help. But of course, that's a direction which needs more development and more attention, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the participants want to hear more than the challenge, maybe what was the fun part that you have. Can you say that in one word? Was the fun part of your project? What did you have mostly fun with during the project development? Maybe you start with Dalia or Sam.
Fun. The most fun, I think, personally, was the adrenaline while making the prototype. It's really something I'm passionate about, to make something with my hands, to design, to produce it. I will go back also to the question of the challenge, because I think I faced quite a few of challenges during this. It was very difficult to organize it, to organize all parties, to sign all the conventions, and particularly I worked with younger people before, and they all, with this group, since maybe it's because they all come from more social science backgrounds, I think it was very, very difficult at the beginning to make them think more creatively and come with new approaches, and also the technical making. But it took a lot of work, but I think in the end the result was quite satisfactory. I was very happy with it also.
It's rewarding at the end of the... Yeah, who wants to step in for the last comments? Did you have fun, Sam?
Yeah, I just wanted to say probably the most fun part for me is just yeah, having more time to be out recording insects, and yeah, being able to explore handling them myself. And I just wanted to encourage other people to get out there, especially in cities, to be recording. I think this is a fantastic way to be overcoming fears around insects. It's just the act of recording, and it just totally shifts your awareness of the biodiversity around you, which is just mind-blowing. This world exists alongside us.
Mm-hmm. And start having like little interaction with the nature that we have around us, and put some attention to the beauty that is there. Yes. Some last word from Finn or Ferran about the fun part.
Oh, I think the fun part from my project was probably the best bit, when everyone just got really hands-on with strange bits of sort of stuff and started building, and getting glue guns and sticking stuff together and just making something that looked like a weird futuristic object. I think people really loved that freedom just to play and put glue on stuff and see what came out the other end, and then say it was a strange fictional object. It's such an open exploratory exercise that, yeah, it was really, really fun.
Yeah, it must be very energizing as well, no? To be able to have the all freedom to play with different things and just invent whatever you want. Must be a very exciting moment for you to see, and for them to participate for them. Ferran, any closing funny part?
Well, yeah, okay. I think that maybe the most I think that all is fun, because it's fun to program, but maybe the most rewarding and fun part is see how the pieces of code can be transformed in something that it's working. I think that it's fun. I think that the programming itself is fun, so it's all fun for me.
It's good to have a landscape of perception of fun, what is fun. So it's very it's very nice, because some wouldn't say the same for programming, but it's important.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, but thanks for bringing this fun part about
Okay.
things are working. Yes, I did it, and it's something exciting actually, and it's very nice. Yes. Okay, I think we are a little overhead the time that we intended to be online with this webinar. But it was very inspiring, and I had tremendous time like looking at your project and development, and where they arrived since they started. So it was very inspiring and insightful for perspective that you also see in the future. So I want to thank you, all the makers, to make the presentation and being so inspirational, and also sharing these exciting stories and sharing the learnings that they have obtained and they have passed through during the process. I mean, I know despite the edition 1 of the JRC Makers in Resident program as being a virtual residency, I really appreciate the passion that you put, the effort that you put to overcome the issues. of distance and not and physical, physical distancing mainly. And I really appreciate your commitment to the program. I also have to make a big thanks to the audience that was here today for their questions, for their interaction. And you know, if you have any other question after the webinar that you want to address to the makers, just don't hesitate to drop an email to the JRC Makerspace functional mailbox, and I will try to coordinate the answer with the maker. So that being said, the recording will be available on the Science Hub website, so you can read it. You can listening again and watch it again as many times as you want. And I wish you all a very good continuation of the day. And thank you very much once again. And goodbye.